Okay.
Okay, I think it's okay to start. Um, if somebody wants to join our call, our webinar, it's totally okay to do it, even when we are talking. So I'll just admit them. I'll admit them in the call. I see that my ex-colleague Maria Jordanova is here. I'm really glad to see her back. So I think it's okay for me to start now. So welcome all of you. My name is Georgi Penev, and I'm the co-director of the Bulgarian Fintech Association. So I'm going to be your host. So as you all know, we are running this series of webinars during these challenging times. And today we have a member of ours, a member company, NetCetera, joining us. The speaker from their side is Kurt Schmidt, responsible for payment strategy and innovation at the company. He will present their perspective on this pandemic and how can we turn this pandemic into an opportunity. So right after his talk, we'll have a Q&A session. So everybody who wants to add or just to comment on our colleague's presentation, he's more than welcome. And just before we start, a quick disclaimer once again that this webinar is being recorded, so we can share so we can share the content of the webinar with our members afterward. So without losing any more time, Kurt, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Georgi. My pleasure to welcome you. And I think we had all this. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. We are not that big group, so I think that will be perfect to be a bit more interactive if you wish. We have also some other webinars. I want to present this. This is, if you follow trends.netcetera.com, we will have further webinars on several topics, but also happy to join future webinars here for the Bulgarian Fintech Forum. As you mentioned, I'm responsible for payment strategy and innovation, and I'm many years now in this payment industry, starting with mobile payments, and now also looking into all kinds of e-commerce payments and in future payment methods. A few slides, only 2 slides about NetCetera. NetCetera is a Swiss company with located in many countries with around 20 offices. And we have everything that is related to payment grouped in a division that is called Secure Digital Payments. And within this division, we both look to how payments are working for acquirers, merchants, and PSPs. But also we serve issuers. On the acquiring side, we do software for 3DS server, 3DS SDK. With 3DS services, we are one of the leading suppliers, and we closely also work in the definition of the standard. The standard is coming from EMVCo, and we are technically associated EMVCo, which does all the relevant payment standards, everything around the card payment, about tokenization, about 3DS, and also in the future about secure remote commerce. Particular of interest, and now also in this webinar, is everything that is related about e-commerce tokenization. We will follow this and how to increase this. So this is also a product we offer for the merchant and PSP side. But we are also working on the issuer side. We deliver mobile payment solutions and wallet solutions to more than 200 banks. This is everything related to mobile payment, card management, card control, value-added services, and then for sure also cloud-based payment that is doing payments with contactless technology, NFC technologies on your smartphone. We are not only a provider of software, but we also do operate this software, have PCI compliant data centers, and serve this for around 30 million cards, and do 24/7 support, and have a strong service offering, and many customers rely on services from us. So just a few examples. DKB, Deutsche Kreditbank, a large German issuer, is simplifying the online payments with a checkout that is supported from out-of-band authentication with mobile phones. So when you shop on the internet, you can just do a Face ID or tap your finger to your smartphone, and you authenticate the e-commerce transaction. Postfinance, a Swiss bank, we have an e-banking application that is also supporting the 3DS and mobile contactless payments. And with Corner Card, also an issuer from Switzerland, we have done the first 3DS transactions based on the 2x standard in Switzerland. And our 3DS solutions is also that we have done the first transaction on 3DS 2.0 in Europe, and are amongst the first companies that are certified for this new 3DS standard. And then you see further references here from both PSPs, issuers, acquirers from various countries where we are working with. On the next section, I want to look a bit on how is Corona impacting e-commerce. For sure, Corona is also impacting the payment on the POS terminal, that you pay more with contactless cards, etc. But here, this presentation is more focusing on everything that is related to e-commerce. And what we can report is there is always a shift between what's going on. Some merchants can't operate. There's losses in the travel industry, but then on the other hand, there is more shopping for other services. So we have seen that in general there is a slightly positive trend in e-commerce transactions. This is what our own data center figures show. So compared to February, we had an almost equal March, but then in April a slight increase of 6% over the February volumes. And also interestingly, the split between the 3DS1 and the 3DS2 generation is that should be implemented by and is mandated by PSD2 for strong customer authentication to be ready by the end of this year, is only currently 9% is 3DS2 transactions. So there is still a long way to go to improve this figure, mainly coming and from slightly delay in readiness from the merchant side. So this is what we've seen during this pandemic. I tried to figure out what is the situation, but you could potentially help me on this as well with some up-to-date figures. I found this Bulgarian payment map on the P-Pro slides, and it says that you have around 2% of e-commerce of the total retail. So the payment breakdown here is card, cash, bank transfer, e-wallet, and then a pretty much equal split between MasterCard and Visa. So I think with that there is still, if you look to the region and to the world, where there is around 16% of e-commerce payments going on, I think Bulgaria has still a good way to go on growth on the e-commerce side. Do you find this, if I ask you directly, do you find this somehow accurate? Is this a good description of what the Bulgarian payment picture is looking like?
Yeah, I would say that it's perfectly legit. We
Yeah,
still have a long way to go in order to achieve this 16% that we see, the
yeah,
average.
yeah. Okay. And then I tried to figure out on the profit and loss on e-commerce between POS and e-commerce transactions, and tried to figure out what could be the impact by the Corona effect. So I found the statistics that is the POS transactions in billion euros was 29 billion in 2016. This was the last figure. This is normally the statistics from EU, and normally the other statistics are from 2018. So if you have the total 6,600 billion in the 32 countries in Europe, this might be a bit more up to date. This figure, the Bulgarian figure, is a bit from 2 years back. And then I calculated on this 2% e-commerce of this would be around 600 million in e-commerce value that you're doing annually. Potentially, maybe this figure could be higher, but this is currently a bit the math and what I found out in terms of numbers. And what we have seen in the Corona in the Corona crisis, and we also asked and looked to what other players, PSPs, are reporting, what the industry is estimating, that we see due to Corona that we have around 25% decline in private spendings. So we have less payments because people can't afford as much as before. I don't know if you would rate this figure the same figure. I would say in our countries, Central European countries, I think this would be a right figure. I don't know if you rate this figure appropriate, but assume this figure is in a magnitude right. This would mean a shift and a decline from this 29 billions in post spending to around 22 million. And then due to the crisis, we see that people shift from POS to e-commerce, and by only a shift of 3% of the volume, this would mean that this could have a huge economic push on the e-commerce payments of almost 100% in the market. For sure, this requires also the availability of the shops and the e-commerce systems. But what we generally see is that the Corona crisis is diminishing the POS business, but increasing heavily the e-commerce business. And I could feel that for Bulgaria, this situation could be similar. Any comments you have on this, or you're so far with this assessment, you would say this is reasonable?
Definitely, it's reasonable. Me personally, I would say that I would need more data to be convinced on 100%, but I'm quite sure that there is no more data, which is definitely a case in Bulgaria. But I do believe that these numbers they can be not only correct, but they can be our future, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And what we have also seen, and this is a very interesting fact, is in the past we had consumer concerns and expected barriers on e-commerce transactions. But with the Corona crisis, depending on the lockdown of the different businesses, there is a need to shop and to purchase goods. And we have seen that people started shopping in e-commerce for the first time because they were saying, I don't need this before. And 18% of consumers that were here under this research are now due to COVID-19 are now shopping for the first time. So this is really then a long-term potential not only that contactless, it's a strong push to contactless as a hygienic payment, but also to e-commerce, because people start shopping on e-commerce, will see the benefits, will see the ease, will learn about the payment processes. So this is really a good motivator to attract people that would have not been attracted before. And then I want to present some of the key players figures. This is the figure from Adyen, a leading PSP, you certainly know. And here you see the beginning of the year, and then there was the total processed volume here by end of March was at around minus 30%. So this is what they reported. Very interesting, or not surprisingly, is this travel business that was then reduced almost for almost 100%, because for sure with the travel bans and people not being allowed to go abroad, I think this is the biggest decline in the industries. Here also Adyen reported that the online retail here started at around 25% plus, versus then in-store retail here has a significant diminishing. On their processed volumes, they saw that even, so to say, here the more than 80% was the decline rate. So for sure, it's depending on which customer bases you're serving, what is your main merchant categories, etc. But I think it's quite interesting to look to other figures, how they cope with and what they see as an impact to their businesses. So that is the introduction, or the first part, what we see as an impact from Corona, and I want to come and generally speak about what will be the changes in the payment landscape on the e-commerce side. On the POS side, I think it's very clear. We will see more contactless with the crisis. We will see also more wallet, because this is even better, because the cardholder validation could be done on the device. So I think this is clear. But I focus now on the e-commerce side. And if we look to the e-commerce checkout types in Europe, so the majority of this e-commerce checkout is card-based. For sure, depending also on the market, there's some direct transfers like PayPal, and there's some other methods like pay in advance, etc. But when we look to these card-based checkouts, there is three types, and this is a type where you already have the card on file stored at the PSP or merchant, which is the majority of this population here, of the 61%. And then 90% of people do a guest checkout, meaning they are not registered before. And around 13% are using digital wallets, where their card is stored in a digital wallet and then use this as a checkout. And what we see, and the problem that we are facing, is really the abandonment and declines and fraud rates. So for sure, 3DS in the 2.x version is helping to increase the conversion. But so far as the majority of transactions, as you have seen, is still 3DS 1, the average abandonment and decline rate is huge, is around 24%. In the past, without PSD2, you were also allowed not to use 3DS. This is then going forward not possible. But when you did not step up the authentication, there was also then a decline rate by the issuer when you didn't use 3DS. So also this was not a good option to go forward. And then 1 in 4 transactions is abandoned because the process is too long and too complicated for the consumer. And the fraud rates compared to if you pay with your card on the POS terminal is significantly higher. So it is estimated to be 4 to 10 times higher. And what we now need to do is we need to find solutions, and the industry is looking into this, how to overcome these challenges. And to overcome these challenges, for this card on file business, The idea is to replace the PAN against the token to reduce the risk, and then to come up with a security that is card present like security. And the card present transactions, you're using EMV cryptograms to sign a transaction. So that is another element. And then also use lifecycle information to keep these credentials up to date, and not having the problem that whatever 3% of all cards typically expire every month because the card validity is only 3 years. So this is solutions here by card on file, and this is the tokenization is helping to reduce this. In the guest checkout, we have principally the same security issues and could solve the security with the same mechanisms. But in addition, we need to look to the user experience and improve the usability. And there is a new standard upcoming that is called Secure Remote Commerce, SRC, a new checkout standard, also defined by EMVCO, and that will especially look to this guest checkout situation. So on the tokenization, I want to show you what is the benefit of the tokenization in the e-commerce space, and I'll start explaining a bit what is tokenization about. It's always to protect PANs. If PANs are stolen, you have the fraud, you have the problem that you need to replace the plastic card, which is a costly process, etc. So you replace the payment credential that you the user has normally against a token. So the token has is less security sensitive, and in order to verify this replacement, so you request that this card is tokenized, you go to a token service provider. This is typically the schemes like MasterCard or Visa. Then you query, is this tokenization for this card okay? So you go to the card issuer, and the issuer says, principally this is okay, but I want to validate that this is the rightful user that is requesting this tokenization. So what you need to do is you need to do a step-up authentication and say this is the rightful user. Typically, you could use, for example, 3DS non-payment authentication to do step-up authentication, but you could also do it like you do it with the XPays or like Apple Pay, that you send an OTP code via SMS from the card issue to the consumer, and once you enter the right OTP, you validate that you are the rightful requester, and everything is then going right. The consumer gets a token and can basically forget the sensitive PAN information. So this is the principle of this tokenization. And this tokenization is not new. Tokenization is by the way, I would say is 5-6 years old. It started then with cloud-based payments. And what we have seen over the last years is that this tokenization was coming from mainly issuer wallets and the OEM wallets. So the Apple Pay and Google Pay, they are token requesters, and then you have the integration of the card issuer to the scheme token system. So in the middle here, you have typically MDES, VTS if you use MasterCard, Visa. And what we also see is that in IoT devices like wearables, but also in the future cars will request these tokens to tokenize these payment credentials. And what is now new and what I'm explaining about is that we also see this tokenization now for the first time for merchants and PSPs. So the idea is to use something that is already in scale, and we have already worldwide billions of cards tokenized, or billions of transactions based on tokens. And we extend what has been used and what has been successful so far for the merchants and PSPs. And this is working with two use cases. So it is working with the use case that a consumer in an e-commerce situation enters the PAN, and then at the moment of PAN entry, this will be replaced against a token. So you tokenize on request, and then whatever you store here, you don't need to store the PAN if you want to put this PAN and bring to card on file. But in many cases, PSPs, merchants already have cards stored, so-called card on file, and then you would require in batch to tokenize the large number of card on files that you have, and you would replace all these card on file against then token on file. So this is the two use cases, and then when you do a transaction with the token, you would also then get the cryptogram like you would get this in the OEM payments, and the cryptogram would sign the transaction, and this is then sent to the PSP and then going to the schemes for detokenization, and then going back to the card issuer for the authentication of the transaction. So principally, we see this is pretty similar like the other tokenizations for mobile payment, and is now also possible for the e-commerce. So what you do is you have first you enroll the cards. So this is with the two use cases I explained. So either you can add a card manually on PAN entry, or you do this from card on file, and then you convert the PAN into a token. Once you have a token, you can then also get the card data and the card art coming from the issuer. You know that in the OEM pays or issuer pays, when you tokenize a card, for example, in Apple Pay, you do not see only this is a MasterCard or Visa, you see the real card work coming from the issuer. This is because the token requester Apple is connected over MDES and VTS to the issuer, and the issuer is providing the artwork for the specific bin range. And the same principle is used here. So in an e-commerce situation, you would also not see this is the card from a card from MasterCard or Visa. You would really see the issuer logo, the issuer artwork, and it would deliver even more trust to the consumer. So this is a second use case that you can display the card art. This is everything you need so for the enrollment and the visibility and UX. And then when you do a transaction, when you perform a shopping, in addition to sending the token with a transaction, you also, with this token, generate an EMV cryptogram that signs this transaction and makes the security card present like. So this is a use case. You need to do the transact call every time you do a purchase. And finally, but also very important, is everything on the life cycle. I mentioned with the connectivity from the merchant, then through the PSP to the issuer. The issuer can, for example, when the card is coming to end of life, can automatically update the PAN to a new PAN to the existing token. Or if you have a lost or stolen case, you can also then block the corresponding token. So with this connectivity, all the life cycle events can be managed. We have a question. Someone open the mic or not? Okay. So and when we now go further, we look on some of the PSPs have said, well, tokenization is not new. We have already tokenized our cards with our own tokenization. And the big difference is that the tokenization, once this was done previously by the PSP, was not known to the issuer. So a PSP tokenization, yes, you have a better security. Yes, your card data, if you steal some information, you only steal the token. You do not steal the funding pan, etc. But all the rest of the benefits you do not have, and the benefits are that when you do the tokenization with the networks, you get better approval rates. I will show you later some of the figures on how these approval rates increase. Then, as I mentioned, you have better user experience by showing the real card artwork, real product names, etc. To the user. You have the benefit of having the lifecycle management. So what is the problem of this automatic update of cards when they expired, etc. All this is solved as well. And then this tokenization gives also some advantages going on in the future for delegated authentication. I will come to this topic. And also for push provisioning, so two very important features that ease the payment process for the consumer significantly. And as the approval rates are higher, typically the issuers and the merchants and PSPs are interested to adopt this. In the future, going forward, it could be also expected that this will be mandated by the schemes, and transactions that will be done just with a funding pan might have higher transaction fees. But so far, with the benefits, I think the industry is very motivated to go forward for the network tokenization. And also, network tokenization is basis for the secure remote commerce, this new checkout standard. And to implement this, we have developed a product that is called the ToPay eCom token connector. And here you see the overall architecture. So you see the issue on the right side that has the issue connectivity with MDES, VTS, AATS, or other token systems. And we aggregate all this then with 3 APIs. So one API is the token enrollment and transaction API. So where you can do the enroll use case, and you can get card art, etc. And you can request to generate the cryptogram for a transaction. And then there is a second API, which is whenever the issuer updates anything to the card, you will be notified that the token, the corresponding token, could, for example, get a new funding pan, etc. So this is coming from the issuer direction to the merchant direction. And then, as this solution is addressing mainly also PSPs, there is also a merchant management API, because you must see that each merchant gets a unique token requester ID. So coming from the wallet side, each wallet today has a token requester ID. But if there are two different merchants, they will not get the same token for the same funding ban by the issuer, but each merchant will get a different token. This is part of the security model. So once you lose this token, no other system is affected. And this is allowing then further use cases. And for management of these token requester IDs for specific merchants, and also looking into statistics, we have a merchant management API here where you can do these automated processes. And then the merchant can have an app or a website, and if there's an app, we have also the SDK versions of 3DS, etc., to complement the functionality here. And advantage on this ToPay token connector, it is here, it is you do not need to do multiple integrations here. So it is one straightforward API with unified flows. So for every scheme and every update the scheme is doing in the future, there is a unified way to do this. So the solution is that we'll hide the complexity from everything that a token request or a merchant or PSP needs to do in order to onboard these tokenization services. Typically, these processes are or these projects are long-running projects. You would need several months or a few years to integrate to a token system, and we hide all this complexity, have one API with all merchant use cases, and we operate this based on our service quality with PCI data center and the full SLA terms for 24/7 uptime. This I mentioned, this PSP to manage merchants, especially for these token requester IDs, TRITs that are, as I mentioned, merchant specific. So what is now the benefit of this scheme tokenization, and how to increase then this conversion? So we have the PAN replacement, which reduces the risk. We have the EMV cryptogram that is sent in a transaction. We have the lifecycle management that keeps the token up to date and provides a very seamless user experience. And as the token is specific to a merchant, this results in a much better risk scoring at the issuer side, reduces the fraud potential, and this increases the approval rate. On the consumer side, he sees the real card art, so this generates trust for the consumer. And then on the on-top features, I will outline this later in the presentation. So what have we seen now as an effect? We have seen that compared when you do transactions in e-commerce from PAN and change this to a token-based transaction, both MasterCard and Visa have reported an average 6% increase. This is for sure depending on which level you had before. So if you had before already 98% approval rate, it's hard to come to 104%. But typically approval rates, as I showed before, are in the 80s%, and you could come from whatever 80, 85 to over 90% easily. An important test has been done with a large PSP, and they did a randomized comparison, one transaction sent by the funding PAN and the next transaction sent by the token, to various issuers. And this showed a 4 to 9% increase on this randomized comparison. I think this is a very good test. It was a result of September last year. So for sure it varies, but it's definitely a good improvement in the conversion results. So summarizing the proposition here, we have faster time to market. One solution fits all schemes within very easy to implement API. You don't have the maintenance efforts, and we do all the updates on behalf of the schemes, and also the future possibilities on especially push provisioning I will explain in a minute. So the tokenization is good for the conversion rate, but it can also help to help on the onboarding, and this is what I'm talking about here with the push provisioning. And normally, when you enroll a card, you would enroll the card at the merchant shop or merchant application. You would enter the card number, the PAN, and expiry date, and everything somehow in this merchant application or website. And then this is a bit of a complicated process. So this is for sure needed at the first time only if you have then card on file, but still this is a bit of a problem. And in order to ease this, there will be a new process of push provisioning, and this push provisioning is only applicable when you have a token. On the left side, you will see here an example of a payment application or card management application that we also provide with our ToPay mobile wallet. And you could see transactions and could apply card settings, etc., or digitize cards. And here there's a button that says linked apps. And with these linked apps, you come to a new page, and you see that you have linked payment devices and merchants, and you see this card has been made available for Fitbit and in a car. So meaning that this card, technically spoken, has been tokenized to this Fitbit Pay, or you could also see here then Apple Pay, etc. So you could list as an issuer because the card has a token, and the token is specific for each merchant or each wallet where this card has been tokenized before. So the list of existing tokens is a huge benefit, because when you manage this, you could also say then, I have here Netflix, I tokenized this card for Netflix, but I want to suspend the payment to Netflix, and then you manage that this token is suspended and won't be able to pay any longer to Netflix. So this is what is the existing tokenized cards. It's not set tokenized to the consumer, so this is more consumer experience, but basically this is technically spoken tokenized cards. And then there will be a list of other apps that are available on this device. So for example, on this device, there would be a parking app, and you could see that this parking app provider is supporting the tokenization. And from this issuer wallet, the consumer could say, okay, I want to add now my card to this merchant, Merchando, and by doing so, I also get the 5 bonus for the activation. And then just with a biometric validation, this card has been then successfully enrolled for this merchant. So this is the push provisioning. Technically, what is happening behind that, there is a token is generated, and this token then is issued for this merchant by this issuer and automatically pushed to this merchant application. So the next time I open on my device here the Merchando app, I would see that this Visa card has been enrolled in this app. There will also be an opposite feature of pull provisioning coming up. So you could say from an application of whatever train ticketing application from your train operator, you want to enroll a card from a bank. So then you will get a list of which issuer wallets are on this device, and you could fetch then a card and pull provision this to this train application. And the basis for this is the tokenization. So this is a very nice and cool feature that the tokenization brings with you. And the second very cool feature is the delegated authentication. Today, if you shop on the internet, you need to do the step-up authentication, and typically today you do this with the 3DS flow. And from the merchant app and the merchant website, you go to the issuer, and the issuer sends you then some out-of-band authentication, for example, and you do the step up supported by the issuer. So the issuer authenticates the transaction, but and this is required by PSD2, because by PSD2 someone needs to authenticate this transaction with the 2 factors that PSD2 requires. But it is not mandated that the authentication and the step up is necessarily done only by the issuer, it could also be done and delegated to the merchant, and this is what I'm explaining right now. So the current flow is that we have here a merchant application, and we have in this merchant application, the consumer is known. And for example, the consumer has also registered his payment credentials. Here you would see he has registered a MasterCard and the Visa card. So if he is in the payment application and does the checkout, then there would be a switch to the issue application. So you would say you receive a message, you would get a push notification, then there would come a pop-up and says, okay, this merchant requested this amount of money, paying with this card. Do you confirm? You authenticate this transaction here in the issuer app, and then you would switch to the back to the merchant application. So this is typically the 3DS and checkout flow today. And with delegated authentication, it would be totally simple, and it's more or less a one-click checkout. This is what we're dreaming of. This is what is the Uber experience. But this is what we could not do easily so far because of the regulations that we need strong customer authentication. And we had so far this complicated process of switching to the issue app. But now with delegated authentication, it means we have the card tokenized for this merchant. You see the real card art here. And in this merchant application, we authenticate the user here, for example, with a biometric fingerprint. And then once this is done, we'll send information back to the issuer, and the issuer can see that the authentication has already been done at the merchant application, and therefore does not require to do the step-up authentication, and you do not leave the merchant application, and really with this one validation, you have done the shopping. And this is legally compliant because you have the two factors. You have the payment token bound to the device. You have the authentication done in the merchant app. What is very, the mechanisms technically is typically based on a FIDO authentication token that the merchant sends via directory server to the issuer. The issuer says, okay, this is a correct authentication token and does not require the step up. So you have some initial bindings still with 3DS, non-payment authentication. And the schemes, MasterCard and Visa, they support this also not only technically, but also with a legal framework that between the issuers and the merchants that are supporting delegated authentication, there's the legal paperwork done that this authentication is legally binding. So that is the delegated authentication, and so I'm coming to the end, and we can do, I think we have a few minutes left for questions. But what is the key finding and what is the summary? So this network tokenization increases the e-commerce conversation. It is an obvious thing to do and a logical next step in everything that you need to do to be compliant with PSD2. I think the next thing is network tokenization. User-centric payment process, UX-friendly payment process, I think this is really key. We have good examples of how we have done this with out-of-band authentication, with the support of mobile wallet apps or mobile card apps based on 3DS 2.0. So we have really best practices from a lot of issuers with happy customers. In the future, secure remote commerce will also further support the guest checkout. We will do further webinars on secure remote commerce if you're interested. This is mainly targeting the guest checkout situation. And then delegated authentication and push provisioning is really very user-friendly and will definitely ease the e-commerce payment process. And for me, as I think we've discussed it at the very beginning, Corona is now really a chance to accelerate digital payment and the digital banking journey. What we have seen now is possible to ease it for the consumer. I think this will be here to stay. And I think Corona is definitely enables us to go faster into the future of payments. That is the end. If you are interested, please ask questions. Also, happy, please join and follow either Netcetera or my LinkedIn account to get updates on our news, what we are doing. So thank you for attention, and I'm open for any questions, should questions be left. I hand back to you, Georgi.
All right, thanks so much, Kurt. So now it's our Q&A session. So everybody is welcome. Just shoot your questions, give your opinions on what you just saw. And if I can start, so Kurt, you said that the conversion rate is increasing when using tokenization, right?
Yes.
But can we assume that it's the same for sales? Because I truly believe that if a person is able just to skip some steps in order to buy something, it would be really nice for the sales as well.
Yes, I think that's on the sales side. I think this is how much abandonment you have because the process is too complicated, and I think it is with the tokenization. You have a technical means once you send a transaction to authorize this transaction. The tokenizations alone helps to increase the approval rate. What you need to do before in order to help the sales side and in order to make the shopping easier for the consumer is coming in addition, is another part. So there for this conversion, I would say the ease of use that you can manage your and push the tokens to your applications, that you have an easy process where you can just with the biometric authentication sign this transaction, etc. This is another benefit that is coming in addition. So tokenization, the approval rate increase and around the 6% that I mentioned is the pure number compared sending a transaction, a successful transaction done successfully, so to say executed by the consumer, sending this to the authorization system of the issuer. So comparing their just token to funding pan will give you this benefit. And a lot of conversion issues you need also to do at the very beginning at the consumer experience.
Right, understand. Thanks so much for the answer. Do you have any more questions? You can just unmute yourself and just shoot a question if you want, or just raise a hand, whatever you find it more convenient for you. But in the meantime, it was really nice, Kurt, for the presentation. I really liked it. And the part with the graphs, it's really nice to see all of these, that I believe all of us, we can see these numbers. But it's really nice to see it in a graph and to see how and actually predict the future. So it was really valuable, I believe.
What I would highlight at the end, we'll give more information. We had by the way yesterday a webinar on the full webinar on the just on the impact of Corona to banking and payment. That was very interesting. So if you wish also further updates from our side, there is you can register at trends.netcetera.com to our webinars. We will speak also, for example, about how the future of checkout will look like with secure remote commerce. We will give topics on open banking APIs, etc. So there is more information from us coming. We are also happy to do further webinars for your association if you wish or have any specific topics. And what is good with us is that we know we have, we are combining, I think, the technical expertise, but with the practical experience from how we implemented this and what was the result and what is working and what is not working. I think that is the benefit. There is many people talking about this in theory, but the important thing is that you really need to run things that you derive the right conclusions. And I think that is where we have good experience from best practice from many countries.
Brilliant. Yeah, of this expertise, it's really valuable. It would be nice if you come for another webinar. We'll figure out a way to get you in one of our next webinars.
Yeah, happy to do so.
Perfect. So any more questions? Yeah, don't be shy. As you see, Kurt is really friendly and he knows a lot.
Totally friendly. Or maybe I explained everything. I think that's also good. If there is no questions, then and everything is said and explained, then it was also good.
Yeah, I believe you've done pretty good job. That's for sure. All right, so if there are no more questions,
if they arise at a later time,
yes,
you find my contacts. So I think we'll be able to do so.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, Kurt, for your time. Thank you for to all of you guys who joined the webinar. And I think it's about for me to wrap it off and just finish off the webinar. So once again, thank you all. I do believe that the webinars are a great way to overcome this crisis, and as we can see so far, we have pretty good success with the webinars for bringing together our audience. And thank you, NetCetera, and you especially, Kurt, for your time. Next webinar that we have is on 18th of May. It's this time it's a bit different than the others. This time we have our partners from Dubai International Financial Center. I think it's a pretty good opportunity for you and NetCetera as well, because they're having a webinar with us, and they will show up and they will explain why is it really nice and a good opportunity for Bulgarian companies to go and open this access or this new market, in the Massa region, in the Middle East and Africa region. So it's going to be really interesting, that's for sure. So 19th of May is the day, and we start a bit earlier. It's in the morning, actually, 10 a.m. You see it in our webpage, as well as on our Facebook and LinkedIn. So I have one more favor to ask of you, all of you guys that participated in this webinar. Please be so kind to fill in the feedback form that I'll send you over. It would mean a lot to us. It's a feedback about the webinar, how we've done, and it's gonna definitely help us improve. And just like I said in the beginning, I'll send you over the recording as well, so we can all share it online with our audiences. And of course, follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Stay tuned for the latest in the fintech world that we can provide from the BFA. Thank you for your time. Stay safe, stay home, and see you next week.
Thank you, Georgi. Thank you for all, and thank you to my colleagues for helping me on this and making this possible. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. You too.